The Great Hall of Theron Prime was the largest structure in the known galaxy. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed beneath its ceiling. Light from a captured star floated in the center, casting golden rays across the thousands of alien delegates who had gathered for this emergency session. High Arbiter Vorath stood at the central platform. He was T-Ben Carter, stood in the middle of his classroom, but he was no longer the man he had been that morning. Golden light still flickered in his eyes as memories flooded through him. Memories that stretched back billions of years. He remembered a different name, a different face. A war that had burned across 3 galaxies and left nothing but ash and silence in its wake. His students had evacuated the building when the alien broadcast appeared. Now Ben was alone, standing before a window, watching the lights in the sky. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. "I remember," he whispered. "God help me. I remember everything." In Seattle, Gracelyn walked out of the library and into the street. Cars were stopped everywhere. People were crying, screaming, praying. But Grace moved through the chaos with calm purpose. She knew exactly where she needed to go. 3 blocks away, hidden beneath an old parking garage, was a door that had not been opened in 10,000 years. Grace pressed her palm against the concrete wall, and ancient mechanisms recognized her genetic signature. The wall slid apart, revealing stairs that led deep into the earth. She descended into darkness, and the darkness welcomed her home. Similar scenes played out across the planet. The awakened ones moved with purpose, guided by memories that were older than the dinosaurs. They found hidden doors, secret passages, concealed chambers. They found the tools that humanity had buried when they chose to forget. Admiral Dreth watched his screens with growing horror. The human ships were unlike anything in the Cassani database. They were sleek and black, shaped like teardrops, moving through space without any visible propulsion. Energy readings showed power levels that should have been impossible. "Fire everything," Dreth ordered. "All weapons." Now. The Cassani fleet unleashed its full fury. Plasma cannons, particle beams, nuclear missiles, antimatter torpedoes. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds streaked toward the human vessels. None of it landed. The human ships did not dodge. They did not deploy shields. They simply existed, and the weapons' fire bent around them like water flowing around stones. The laws of physics themselves seemed to obey the human vessels. "That is impossible," Dreth breathed. "Nothing can do that." A communication request appeared on his screen. Dreth accepted it with trembling fingers. Jack Harper's face appeared again. Behind him, Dreth could see the interior of a human ship. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Walls of flowing light, controls that seemed to respond to thought alone. Admiral Jack said, "I am going to give you one chance. Turn your fleet around. Return to your council. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them to leave Earth alone." He was Cassini. He had never retreated. He would not start now. "You are bluffing," he snarled. "Your tricks are impressive, but you cannot defeat 3,000 warships. This is your last chance to surrender." Jack sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had hoped for a different outcome. "Very well. I want you to understand something, Admiral. What happens next is not revenge. It is not anger. We take no pleasure in this. We simply cannot allow you to harm our home." He paused. "We made a promise to ourselves long ago. We swore that we would never become what we were in the first era. We swore we would be gentle, kind, peaceful." His eyes darkened. "But you are making it very difficult to keep that promise." The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the human ships began to move. Gracelyn sat in the pilot seat of a vessel she had not flown in 3 billion years. Her body was small, middle-aged, soft from years of shelving books and drinking coffee. But her mind held the skills of a warrior who had destroyed stars. She guided her ship toward the nearest Cassini cruiser. The alien vessel was enormous, bristling with weapons. It fired everything it had at her. Grace did not slow down. Her ship passed through the weapons fire like a ghost. Then, with a single thought, she reached out and touched the cruiser's power core. She did not destroy it. She simply turned it off. The cruiser went dark. Life support, weapons, engines. Everything stopped. Sleep now, Grace whispered. You will be collected later. Across the battlefield, similar scenes unfolded. Human ships moved through the Kesani fleet with terrifying grace. They did not destroy. They disabled. Power cores went silent. Weapon systems failed. Ships drifted helplessly in the void. Admiral Dreth watched his fleet die around him. Not die, he realized. Sleep. The humans were putting his ships to sleep. Why? He asked the empty bridge. Why do they not just destroy us? A voice answered him. It came from the ship's speakers, calm and gentle, because you do not understand what you have done. You attacked us out of fear and ignorance. That does not deserve death. It deserves education. Dreth looked around wildly. Who speaks? My name is Ben Carter. I used to teach high school history. I am still a teacher, I suppose. Just with different lessons now. On the main screen, a human ship appeared directly in front of the Conqueror's Pride. It was tiny compared to the Kasani flagship, larger than a shuttle, but Dreth could feel the power radiating from it. Power that made his warship feel like a toy. Admiral Ben's voice continued, I want you to understand something. We did not want this. We spent billions of years hiding, forgetting, trying to be something other than what we were born to be. The small ship drifted closer. Do you know what the Void Lords were? They were beings of pure hunger. They consumed stars, planets, entire civilizations. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be contained. They simply ate and ate and ate until nothing remained. Dreth felt cold sweat dripping down his back. We stopped them, Ben said. We were created to stop them. Or perhaps we evolved to stop them. We do not remember anymore. But we were the only ones who could fight them. The only ones strong enough. Fast enough. Ruthless enough. The human ship stopped directly in front of Dreth's bridge window. Through the transparent hull, he could see a middle-aged human male sitting cross-legged, floating in empty space without any protection. The human's eyes glowed like twin suns. We won, Ben said. But the cost was terrible. We burned 3 galaxies to ash. We killed trillions of innocent beings caught in the crossfire. When the war ended, we looked at what we had become, and we wept. Ben's glowing eyes met Dreth's terrified gaze. We came to Earth to forget, to be gentle, to raise families and grow gardens and watch our children play. We wanted to be anything other than what we are. You raised one hand. The Conqueror's pride trembled. But you woke us up. You reminded us, and now we have to decide what kind of beings we want to be. The flagship's systems began to shut down one by one. Lights flickered. Engines died. Weapons went silent. I have decided to be merciful, Ben said. I hope you will tell your council that mercy was our choice, not weakness. Choice. The last of the power faded. Admiral Dreth sat alone in the darkness, surrounded by the wreckage of his pride. Finally understanding what the Ancient One had tried to tell them, humanity is awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news reached Theron Prime at the speed of light, but it felt like it took forever. High Arbiter Voroth sat in his private chamber, watching the reports scroll across his screens. His 4 hands were trembling. 3,000 warships, the pride of the Kasani fleet. Disabled in less than an hour, not a single human casualty, not a single human ship damaged. This cannot be real, Voroth whispered. This must be some kind of trick. But the reports kept coming. Admiral Dreth's distress signal. Visual recordings from surviving ship sensors. Data that showed human vessels moving faster than light without hyperspace drives. Energy readings that broke every known law of physics. And worst of all, the testimony of Dreth himself. Transmitted from his dark and powerless flagship. They are not what we thought, Dreth said in the recording. His voice was hollow, broken. They let us live. They could have destroyed us in seconds, but they chose mercy. High Arbiter, we have made a terrible mistake. Voroth hurled a drinking vessel against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, but the sound did nothing to calm his rage. "Summon the council," he ordered. "All members. Emergency session. Now." Jack Harper stepped out of the ship and onto the landing platform. He wore simple clothes, the kind a farmer might wear on a quiet Sunday afternoon. His face was weathered and kind. His eyes held depths that spoke of ages beyond counting. A delegation of council representatives waited for him. They bowed low as he approached. Jack felt uncomfortable with their fear, but he understood it. He would have felt the same way in their position. "Please," he said gently. "You do not need to bow. I am just a man." "You're much more than that," the lead delegate whispered. Jack sighed. "I suppose I am, but I do not want to be. I never wanted to be." He was escorted into the Great Hall. It was even more impressive than he had expected, but Jack had seen wonders that made this place look like a child's drawing. He had seen galaxies burn. He had seen stars die screaming. This was just a building. Stone and light and fear. The council members had gathered once again. But this time, they were not sitting in their seats of power. They were standing at the edges of the chamber, pressed against the walls, trying to be as invisible as possible. Only two beings waited at the center platform. High Arbiter Vorath, stripped of his rank, but still required to be present for the formal surrender. And Zeleth, the Ancient, whose presence Jack had specifically requested. Jack walked to the platform and stopped before Zeleth. For a long moment, the two ancient beings simply looked at each other. "You remember me?" Jack said. It was not a question. "I remember," Zeleth replied, "though you wore a different face then. A different name. You were called the Last Mercy, the one who ended the First War with a single blow." Jack closed his eyes. The memories were there now, fully restored. He remembered that final moment. The gathered power of humanity focused through a single point, erasing the last of the Void Lords from existence. The scream that had echoed across 3 galaxies as darkness itself died, and he remembered the silence that followed. The terrible silence of a universe that had been saved through unspeakable violence. "I never wanted to remember that," Jack whispered. "We sealed those memories away for a reason. We could not bear the weight of what we had done." Zeleth nodded slowly. "I know. I watched you bury yourselves on that small blue world. I watched you choose to forget. I thought it was foolish at first. Such power, abandoned. Such potential, wasted." His 3 eyes dimmed with something like respect. "But over the years, I came to understand. You were not running from weakness. You were running from strength. You feared what you might become if you kept that power." "We were right to fear it," Jack said. "We lost ourselves during the First War. We became something terrible. Something that made the Void Lords look merciful by comparison." He turned to face the council. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "You think of us as monsters. I can see it in your eyes. And perhaps you are right. We have done monstrous things. We have burned worlds and shattered stars and ended entire civilizations." The delegates trembled. Some wept openly. "But we are also teachers and farmers and parents and poets. We are the woman who stops to help a stranger. The man who gives his last meal to a hungry child. The child who dreams of touching the stars." Jack's voice grew softer. "We are all of these things mixed together. The capacity for terrible destruction and the capacity for boundless love. That is what it means to be human." He paused. "That is why we chose to forget. Because we knew that if we held on to our power, sooner or later, the darkness would win. Sooner or later, we would become the very thing we fought against." Whispered, War conwiming. His pride was gone, replaced by genuine curiosity. Then why did you not simply destroy yourselves? If your power was so dangerous, why not end it forever? It was a good question. Jack had to think about his answer. Because the universe still needs guardians, he finally said. The Void Lords were the greatest threat of that age, but they were not the only threat. There are things in the darkness between galaxies, things that wait and watch and hunger. Someday, they will come. And when they do, humanity will be needed. He looked at Zelith. That is why we slept instead of died. We hoped we would never need to wake, but we left ourselves the option just in case. Zelith bowed his ancient head. And now you are awake. What happens next? Jack took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been dreading. The moment when he had to accept a burden he had spent billions of years running from. Resume our duty, he said. We patrol the borders. We watch for threats. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. His voice hardened, and we pray that we never have to become what we were in the First War. He turned back to the council. These are our terms. Accept them, and you will have our protection. Refuse them, and we will not destroy you. We will simply leave. We will find a new place to hide, a new world to call home. And when the darkness comes for you, you will face it alone. The choice was clear. The council accepted unanimously. The formal surrender was signed. Vorath handed over the Kasani military codes. Resources were pledged. Treaties were written. It took hours, but finally, everything was done. As Jack prepared to leave, a young council aide approached him. She was small and purple-skinned, with wide eyes full of innocent curiosity. May I ask you a question? She said. Jack smiled. Of course. Why did you choose to be farmers? Of all the things you could have become, why farmers? The question surprised Jack. He thought about it for a long moment. Because growing things is the opposite of destroying them, he finally said. Every seed we planted, every crop we harvested, was a reminder that we could create instead of consume, that we could nurture instead of annihilate. He knelt down so he was at her eye level. That is the secret of humanity, young one. We are capable of terrible things, but we are also capable of great love. The struggle between those two sides is what defines us. And as long as we keep choosing love, keep choosing growth, keep choosing mercy, we remain human. He stood and walked toward his ship. At the door, he paused and looked back at the Great Hall one final time. Remember this day, he called out, not as the day humanity showed its power, but as the day humanity showed its restraint. We pray that we can always choose mercy. But if the darkness comes, if there is no other option, know this. We will do what must be done. That is our burden. That is our gift. That is who we are. Then he was gone. 3 weeks later, Jack Harper sat on his porch in Nebraska. Emma was beside him, asking questions about stars and aliens and the meaning of life. Questions that Jack could now answer in ways he never could before. He looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the borders of known space. Watching, waiting, protecting it. It was not the peaceful retirement Jack had hoped for. The dream of forgetting was over. But as Emma laughed at a joke he made about purple aliens, Jack realized that perhaps there was something better than forgetting. Perhaps there was accepting who they were, accepting their power, accepting their responsibility, and maybe, just maybe, accepting that love and destruction could exist in the same heart, and that the choice between them was what made them truly human. He hugged his granddaughter, close, and watched the stars. The universe was vast and dark and full of danger, but tonight, at least it was also full of hope, all nearly 3 meters, with skin like polished obsidian and forearms that moved with terrible grace. His species, the Kessini, had ruled the Galactic Council for 10,000 years. They had conquered 200 worlds and commanded the most powerful fleet ever assembled. Vorath feared nothing in the universe. Almost nothing. Fellow members of the council, Vorath announced, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the massive chamber. We have discovered a threat. A small world on the outer edge of the Orion Arm. The natives call it Earth. A holographic image appeared above the platform. A blue and green planet covered in water and simple land masses. It looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. The delegates murmured among themselves. Many had never heard of this world. 50 cycles ago, these creatures were still fighting each other with chemical explosives, Vorath continued. Today, they have split the atom. They have sent machines to other planets in their system. They are learning faster than any species we have ever recorded.
Oh.
The murmurs grew louder. Rapid advancement was dangerous. Species that evolved too quickly often became unstable, aggressive, hungry for expansion. I propose a preemptive strike, Vorath declared. We will send a fleet to neutralize their military capabilities. We will place them under Kasani protection. This is for the good of the galaxy. Many delegates nodded in agreement. The Kasani way was efficient, clean, a swift strike, minimal casualties, and another world added to the Council's domain. It had worked countless times before, but then something strange happened. A sound filled the chamber. It was soft at first, like wind through ancient trees. Then it grew into a voice, deep and vast, as if the universe itself had decided to speak. I would advise against this course of action. Every being in the hall turned to look at the source. Within hours, the great hall was filled once again. But the mood was very different from the last gathering. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Delegates whispered to each other with trembling voices. Many had already accessed the ancient archives. They knew now what Zeleth had tried to tell them. Vorath stood at the central platform trying to project confidence he did not feel. We have suffered a setback, he announced. But the Kasani Dominion is strong. We will gather our remaining forces. We will call upon our allies. You will do nothing. The voice came from everywhere at once. Ancient, powerful, sad. Zeleth appeared at the center of the chamber. His form was more solid than before, more present. His 3 eyes glowed with inner fire.
I warned you,
the Ancient One said. I begged you to listen, but your pride was greater than your wisdom. Vorath's fear transformed into anger. You knew? You knew what they were, and you did not tell us clearly. You spoke in riddles and mysteries. Would you have believed me if I spoke plainly? Zeleth asked. Would you have believed that the soft, short-lived creatures on that blue world were once the most terrifying force in the universe? That they ended an era? That they destroyed beings that I, with all my power and age, could not even comprehend? He floated closer to Vorath. I did not know if they still had their power. I did not know if their memories remained. I only knew that the risk was too great. Any risk was too great when dealing with the architects of ruin. A delegate from the Vorthane Republic stood up. She was small and blue-skinned, with large eyes that reflected terror. What do we do now? She asked. Are they coming here? Will they destroy us? Before Zeleth could answer, every screen in the chamber flickered. A new image appeared. A human face. It was Grace Lynn, the former librarian from Seattle, but there was nothing soft about her now. Her eyes held depths that spoke of ages and battles and terrible choices. Members of the Galactic Council, she said. My name is Grace Lynn. I speak on behalf of Earth. The chamber fell silent. Even Vorath did not dare interrupt. We did not want this, Grace continued. We spent billions of years trying to forget who we were. We built a peaceful world. We raised children. We wrote poetry and painted pictures and fell in love. We were happy. Her voice hardened slightly. Then you sent your fleet. You tried to burn our cities. You tried to enslave our people. You woke us from a dream that we never wanted to end. She paused, letting the words sink in. We have disabled your fleet. Your soldiers are alive but helpless. We could destroy them with a thought. We could destroy you with a thought. The power we hold is beyond your understanding. Air's legs nearly gave out beneath him. But we remember what we became during the First War, Grace said. We remember the trillions who died because of us. We remember the galaxies we burned. We swore an oath to ourselves that we would never become that again. Her expression softened, just slightly. So we are going to offer you a choice, a chance. Something we were never given when the Void Lords came. A document appeared on every screen. Terms of surrender. Conditions for peace. We will dissolve the Kasani military, Grace read. Not because we fear it, but because it was used for aggression. You will pay reparations in resources and technology. These will be used to rebuild the regions of space that we once protected. And she looked directly at Voreth. And you, High Arbiter, will step down from your position. Your judgment brought the galaxy to the edge of extinction. You are not fit to lead. Voreth opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. What could he say? What argument could he make against beings who had just defeated his entire fleet without breaking a sweat? In return, Grace continued, humanity will resume its ancient role. We will protect the galaxy from threats that you cannot handle. We will guard the borders against the darkness that waits beyond. We will be what we were born to be. Her voice grew heavy with sorrow. We do not want this duty. We ran from it for billions of years. But you have reminded us that some responsibilities cannot be escaped. Some burdens must be carried, whether we wish to or not. The transmission paused. In the great hall, no one moved. No one breathed. You have one standard cycle to accept these terms, Grace said. If you refuse, we will not destroy you. We are done with destruction, but we will remove your ability to threaten anyone ever again. Your choice. The screen went dark. Vor stood frozen at the central platform. His mind raced through options, strategies, possibilities, but every path led to the same conclusion. There was no way to fight this. No way to negotiate. Humanity held all the power, and they were offering mercy. Mercy that the Kessani would never have offered in return. High Arbiter, the Vorthani delegate called out. We must accept. We have no choice. Other voices joined hers. One by one, the council members declared their support for accepting the human terms. Even the most proud, the most stubborn, could not argue with reality. Voreth felt his world crumbling around him. Everything he had built, everything he had achieved, gone in a single day because he refused to listen to an ancient warning. Very well, he said, his voice barely a whisper. We accept. In the corner of the chamber, Zeleth watched with ancient eyes. He felt no satisfaction, no vindication, only sorrow for what had been awakened and fear for what might come next. The humans had shown mercy today, but Zeleth remembered the First War. He remembered what humanity became when mercy was no longer an option. He prayed to whatever gods might still exist that the galaxy would never see that side of humanity again, but deep in his ancient heart, he knew that prayers were not always answered. 1 week after the surrender, a single human ship arrived at Thurin Prime. It was small and unassuming. Nothing like the terrible warships that had disabled the Kessani fleet, but every being in the system felt its presence like a weight on their soul in the far corner of the chamber. In a section reserved for observers sat a figure that most delegates had forgotten existed. He was called Zeleth, the Ancient, and he was older than the stars themselves. His body was a shifting mass of light and shadow, constantly changing, never quite solid. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle glowed with the soft blue of dying suns. Zeleth had not spoken in council for over 1,000,000 years. Voreth recovered from his surprise quickly. The honored elder speaks. We are grateful for his wisdom, but perhaps he does not understand the situation. These humans are primitive. They posed no immediate threat, but in a century, perhaps 2, they could become dangerous. Zeleth rose from his seat. As he moved, reality seemed to bend around him. The captured star at the center of the hall flickered, as if acknowledging something far older than itself. I have existed for 12 billion years, Zeleth said, his voice echoing in ways that had nothing to do with acoustics. I was conscious before the first galaxies formed. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen horrors that would drive your species mad if I merely described them. He floated toward the central platform. Delegates moved aside, some trembling, others simply frozen in awe. In all that time, across all those galaxies, There is one world I have never approached, one species I have never dared to disturb. Zeleth's 3 eyes fixed on the holographic image of Earth. Do not assault that world, High Arbiter. The humans are not what they appear to be. Arath felt a chill run through his body, but he refused to show weakness. With respect, honored elder, you speak in riddles. What could these creatures possibly be that frightens one such as yourself? Zeleth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper, yet everyone in the chamber heard it clearly. I do not know exactly what they are. That is what frightens me. I have seen them before, High Arbiter. Long ago, in an age your species does not remember. They called themselves by a different name then. They were the ones who ended the First Era. They were the ones who destroyed the Void Lords. Gasps filled the chamber. The Void Lords were a myth, a story told to frighten children. Beings of pure darkness that had supposedly consumed entire star clusters before mysteriously vanishing. The Void Lords are legend, Voreth said firmly. Stories. Nothing more. They were real, Zeleth replied, and the humans made them extinct. Not through diplomacy. Not through containment. Through absolute annihilation, the humans burned 3 galaxies to ash to ensure not a single Void Lord survived. He turned to face the entire council. They chose to forget what they were. They sealed away their power and hid on that small blue world, hoping to live in peace. I have honored their wish for billions of years. I suggest you do the same. Borath laughed. It was a forced sound, meant to break the tension. A wonderful story, honored elder, but our sensors show the truth. Earth has no advanced technology, no defensive systems, no fleet. They are helpless. They are sleeping, Zeleth corrected. There is a difference, then we will ensure they never wake. Zeleth's eyes dimmed with what might have been sadness. You cannot hear me. Your pride will not allow it. Very well, High Arbiter. Send your fleet. Make your war. But know this. When the humans remember what they are, they will not stop with your fleet. They will come here. They will find everyone who voted for this action. And they will remind the galaxy why, in the age before memory. Their name was spoken only in whispers. With those words, Zeleth faded from view. Returning to whatever plane of existence he called home, Vorath stood in silence for several heartbeats. Then he straightened his shoulders and addressed the council. The vote will proceed. One by one, the delegates raised their approval. Fear of the unknown was powerful, but fear of seeming weak was stronger. The invasion of Earth was approved by unanimous decision. 300 light-years away, on a small farm in Nebraska, a retired pilot named Jack Harper looked up at the night sky and felt something stir in his chest. Something old. Something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. He did not know it yet. But the universe was about to remember. Why humanity had chosen to forget. The Kasani war fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 3,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet, arranged themselves in perfect formation around the pale blue dot called Earth. Admiral Dreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Pride. He was younger than Vorath, but just as ambitious. This mission would make his career. A quick victory over a primitive species, and he would return home a hero. Scan the planet, he ordered. Find their military installations. His officers worked quickly. Data filled the screens around them. Dreth smiled as he read the results. No energy shields. No orbital defenses. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear missiles that travel slower than our slowest transport ships. He laughed. The Ancient One was a fool. These creatures are helpless. Sir, one officer said carefully, there is something strange. We are detecting unusual energy signatures beneath the planet's surface. Also, under their oceans and on the far side of their moon. Geological activity, Dreth dismissed. Perhaps they have geothermal power plants. It does not matter. Begin the invasion protocol. We will demand their surrender first. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our power. Transmission was sent to every communication device on Earth, every television, every radio, Every phone suddenly displayed the same message. Admiral Dreth appeared on screens around the world, his alien face filling living rooms and city squares. "People of Earth," he announced, "I am Admiral Dreth of the Kasani Dominion. Your world now belongs to the Galactic Council. You will disarm immediately and accept our governance. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have one standard cycle to comply." Then the transmission ended. On Earth, chaos erupted. Government scrambled. Military forces mobilized. People screamed, cried, prayed. The world had just discovered it was not alone in the universe, and their visitors were not friendly. But in a small farmhouse in Nebraska, Jack Harper sat very still on his porch. His granddaughter Emma was beside him, her small hand clutching his weathered fingers. "Grandpa," she whispered, "what are those lights in the sky?" Jack looked up. Even from here, he could see the faint glimmers of the alien fleet, catching sunlight like 1,000 new stars. "Trouble," he said softly. "Old trouble." Something was happening inside Jack's mind. Memories that were not his own were trying to surface. Faces he had never seen. Wars he had never fought. A name that made his heart race with emotions he could not understand. He stood suddenly and walked inside. In his study, hidden behind a false wall, was a rotary phone that had not been used in 30 years. Jack picked it up and dialed a number that he somehow knew by heart, even though he had no memory of learning it. The phone rang twice. A woman's voice answered. "Prometheus Protocol. Identify yourself." "Harper Jackson. Serial number 7-7-4-2-9. I need to speak with whoever is in charge now." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, shaking slightly. "Please hold, Mr. Harper." In the Pentagon, deep underground in a bunker that did not officially exist, General Kate Sullivan received the call. She was a small woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had spent her entire career preparing for threats she hoped would never come. Now one of those threats was here. "Mr. Harper," she said into the phone. "I was told you died in 1992. "That was my father," Jack replied. "The duty passes down. You know this." Kate closed her eyes. Yes, she knew. The Prometheus Protocol was the most classified program in human history. Only 12 people on Earth knew it existed, and only one person could activate it. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Once we start, we cannot stop." "Look at the sky, General. We do not have a choice. Wake the sleepers." Kate hung up. She walked to a vault at the back of the bunker. It required 3 keys, a retinal scan, and a blood sample to open. Inside was a single red button beneath a glass case. She broke the glass and pressed the button. Nothing visible happened. No alarms sounded. No announcements were made. But across the planet, something ancient began to stir in Chicago. A high school teacher named Ben Carter was in the middle of a lesson when he suddenly collapsed. His students screamed and called for help. But by the time the nurse arrived, Ben was already standing. His eyes were glowing with soft golden light. In Seattle, a librarian named Grace Lynn dropped the book she was shelving. Her hands were trembling. Memories poured into her mind like water breaking through a dam. She remembered ships. She remembered battles. She remembered a war fought before Earth even existed, in Miami. A construction worker named Danny Ruiz fell to his knees on a building site. Tears streamed down his face as he remembered who he really was. What he really was. All across the world, millions of people experienced the same awakening. They were ordinary men and women who had lived ordinary lives. Teachers, farmers, doctors, artists, but deep in their genetic code. Sleeping for countless generations was something extraordinary. They were the descendants of warriors. Not just any warriors. The warriors who had ended the First Era, the hunters who had destroyed the Void Lords, the beings that the ancient universe had called the architects of ruin, humanity had chosen to forget. They had sealed away their power, their technology, their terrible memories. They had come to Earth to live in peace, to raise families, to watch sunsets and grow old without the weight of 1,000 galaxies on their shoulders. But the Kessini had broken the seal, and now humanity was waking up in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Something enormous began to move. It had been buried beneath the seafloor for 3 billion years, waiting for this moment. Ancient engines, powered by forces that modern physics could not explain, hummed to life. On the dark side of the moon, hidden from every telescope and satellite, hangar doors began to open. Ships that made the Kasani fleet look like toys prepared for launch. Beneath mountains in Tibet, in caves in Australia, in ice sheets in Antarctica, similar awakenings were taking place. Admiral Dreff's deadline passed. Earth sent no response. No surrender. No communication at all. Dreff smiled. They choose death. Very well. Begin orbital bombardment. Target their largest cities. Show them the cost of defiance. Plasma cannons charged. 3,000 warships prepared to rain fire upon the helpless planet below. The first volley launched, and then something impossible happened. The plasma fire, enough to level a continent, simply stopped. It hung in space, frozen, as if time itself had paused. Then, slowly, it faded away, absorbed by something invisible. Dreff stared at his screens. What? What is happening? A new signal appeared, a transmission from Earth. But it was not coming from any government channel. It was coming from everywhere at once. A human face appeared on every screen in the Kasani fleet. It was an old man with kind eyes and a weathered face. Jack Harper looked at the alien admiral with something that might have been pity. "You should have listened to the Ancient One," Jack said quietly. "You should have let us sleep." Behind him, rising from Earth's oceans and launching from hidden bases around the world, came ships of obsidian and starlight. Ships that the Kasani had never seen before. Ships that made their mighty fleet look like children's playthings. Humanity had awakened, and they remembered everything.